Continuing on with the Bankrupt Bookseller. Books for children and so forth. A book for a boy was one of my inquiries today, and as Christmas approaches, I will have to fill up my stock. As usual, a picture of my responsibility comes before me. My choices and recommendations will influence the future in ways untellable and unmanageable. A life of Clive may make a boy a soldier. The Swiss Family Robinson may send him to be a planter in the South Seas. A life of Calvin may make him a scientist. The life of Henry Ford may make him a great individualist. These are the big responsibilities that I feel them all. For boys of 14 and thereabouts, I am all for giving them biographies. Plutarch's Lives for Boys and Girls at one end is a good book, and at the other, why not Samuel Smiles' Self-Help? Yeah, I'd like to see that go over today. Uh, Monkeys we were and monkeys we remain, imitative creatures. Let us have the best examples before us while we are very young. My own youth was greatly stimulated by a good illustrated edition of Aesop's Fables. They made me feel an interest in the beasts and helped to wake sympathies with the brutes I might otherwise never have felt. Dense Everyman edition is good for adults, but a pictured edition I haven't one just now, and I don't know of one is the best for youngsters. Fairy tales are not what they were. Andrew Lang's collections were the best I know, but nowadays boys and girls want. I know, but nowadays the boys and girls want books on motor cars and airplane, books of adventure and pluck and peril, and these are readily available. Personally, I can't read them, and I often wonder who write them. They are undoubtedly popular. I know that by experience, and that proves that publishers like Nilsson's and Blackie's, for example, who make a specialty of the children's books business, know it better than I do. The Draper's shops sell more at their bazaar than the booksellers sell, and perhaps that is as it should be. These books with titles such as The Wolf Runner by E. E. Cowper and The Smiths of Silver Lane by Ethel Talbot make me feel that I know nothing about books. The A. A. Milne books, for all their success, affect me much the same. I am no more able to select and buy such books for children with discrimination than I am able to buy prams or Pregarics. The truth is that the books I and most folks think are good children's books are really books for ourselves. Alice in Wonderland is a wonderland for children. By all means, it is not comprehension. The mind that the mind that revels in Alice is an adult one, as witnessed the gallant Osborne in his new play Journey's End. To him, the wonderland of Alice is a garden of delight into which the fortunate visitor may escape from the too terrible realities of existence. All the folk I have met who like Alice are grown up and intellectual. To call it a child's book is to bring truth to the prophecy. Except ye become as little children, ye will in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven. Alice's Wonderland was a veritable kingdom of heaven in the wilderness of the late Victorian era. It even won Victoria herself. She loved Alice and ordered from her bookseller, who were the royal booksellers, Bumpus or Hatchards, I suppose, all other works by Mr. Carroll. It is not recorded that Her Majesty thought Her Majesty thought of the other works. C.L. Dodgson on mathematical subjects. Another favorite of mine, which I have sold as a book for children, is Cautionary Tales by Hilary Belloc. It is a work of genius and stands at in the same honorable catalog as Alice. The fact is, grown-ups buy quite a number of books which they allege are for children, but which really are for themselves. Alice is one, Cautionary Tales is another, and I'm sure Gulliver's Travels and Pilgrim's Progress would very rarely be bought by children for themselves. Lamb's Tales for Shakespeare is another. I see I am disclosing myself. I have no real sympathy with children's books. I am proselytizing all the time. I want my customers, children or adults, to read the books I like. I am a pontiff in such matters. I ought to cultivate Catholicity. I can't say that. Although the high organization of Catholicity itself has its index expiracious. So I am not too abandoned a sinner after all. The most regular buyer of children's books I have buys Scott, Dickinson, and Stevenson. Dickens, not Dickinson, Dickens. He says the best boys' books, and he has tried them on. His lucky dogs are The Talisman, The Tale of Two Cities, and Treasure Island. They certainly are a good trio, and now that copyright is out, I might make a suggestion to the publishers who favor omnibus books. They would make a good omnibus for boys. The Crusades, the French Revolution, and the Pirates of the Spanish Main are subjects that are all proper lads should know. If one wanted others, I would suggest a Kingsley omnibus. Why not Harewood the Wake, Westward Ho, and the Water Babies? For girls, I have no wise matron whose opinion I could ask, but I still venture my own. Louisa May Alcott's Little Women would be first. Lots of girls like it. My second would be The Mill and the Floss. George Eliot is always good and is surely due for a revival. My third would be a modern, and after a thorough look over my stock and my catalogs, I give the palm to Dorothea Moore. I am sure girls like her books. They know her titles and ask for them. That is the mark of adoring faith. The older generation of girls' books has passed away, but I remember with affection Mrs. Molesworth, Rosa N. Carey, and Anne S. Swan, who now writes for the moderns. These are good in their day. These were good in their day, and still now and then I sell second-hand copies to dames who would renew their youth. Good ABC books do not exist now, but they ought to. It is a deficit. I learned my zoology from an alphabet book with splendid pictures, the like of which I cannot find today. A was an ape, and all apes to me are descendants of that first ape in the Garden of Eden of my youth. A GNU I never would have known but for his work, for I have never seen one or heard of one since. Yet G, which might have suggested goose or goat, brought me through this book to the GNU, which the Oxford Dictionary in one line concisely dismisses as GNU, an ox-like antelope, Hottentot. The Inchman is another creature I have met but once and then right early. The compiler of the book knew no other creatures who were so egotistic, so I went to Inchimon, and my stories of learning have been permanently enriched. Other alphabets might be made of the idea appeals to publishers as to appeals to me. There might be a series of alphabets, the alphabet of the Bible, beginning with Ananias and finishing with Zacchaeus, and and B an easy one. The Z gives no serious thought, and Xerxes might be introduced for the X, the alphabet of common things beginning with apples and going down to zoo would be a valuable introduction to the wonderful world for many minds. Then why not in these anti-militarist days an alphabet of the wickedness men call war? It would begin with armistice and end with, most appropriately, Zeppelin. The exercise is a pleasing one. I must address myself, I repeat, to the publishers. They would find me most helpful in their search for fairy gold. These quoted words are from the decorated title page of Granny's Wonderful Chair. Quote, this is fairy gold, boy, and 'twill prove so. The dearly beloved Dent has printed them in to introduce Francis Brown's book. The book is worth buying, for the memoir by D.R. Francis Brown was one of the heroines. Born poor and blind in Donegal in 1860, she climbed to fame and achievement over every obstacle. Her forgotten novel, My Share of the World, would be worth recovering. One of the characters finds life intolerable and turns to suicide. Of her she writes, when the burden outgrows the strength so far that moral as well as physical energies begin to fail, and there is no door but death that will welcome our weariness, what remains but to creep into the quiet shelter. But morbidly though Francis Brown could write, there is no morbidity in Granny's Wonderful Chair. It is as good a fairy book as I know, and it can take its place with those popular aliens, the brothers Grimm and Hans Andersen himself. Each year sees the old favorites Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, and Jack the Giant Killer received with appropriate pictures. They will do for uncles who have three nephews or nieces and who seek to discriminate one with special favor. They are a happy lot, and it would be difficult to tell which of the three is the most dearly beloved. The Dr. Doodle series are not to be ignored, and there is also Little Black Sambo. Yeah. Few great men of literature have written deliberately for the young, but Rudyard Kipling is a glorious exception. The Just So stories, The Jungle Book, and Stalky and Company are all in the highest class, and the history he wrote with C.R.L. Fletcher is calculated to make proud Englishmen. The official neglect of Kipling always seems to me an outrage, but when William Shakespeare was never poet laureate either. This amid much that disappoints and disgusts, including, I have always thought the Kipling Society is one of the consolations of Kipling. He loves and understands England and Englishmen too well to expect too much. I'll read that again because it is, I thought, clever. He loves and understands England and Englishmen too well to expect too much. I write on and on. I have nothing but rambling thoughts on books for children. This writing about books under rough classifications is a task for my trade. I want to confess to myself this Emile did to his soul, and Pepys to his diary. It gives me confidence. I have given thought, though it be ever so little and entirely irrelevant, to the question of what books I ought to have for children. It is good. All work, even the little failures like creation itself, have had that pronouncement said over them. I say no less the less of these pages of penciling. It is good. There is no other critic, very fortunately, but myself, and tonight complacency conquering the verdict is with me. Good night, books, I have said. I had carried back a pile of children's books, some like Eric or Little by Little, and a pep behind the scenes, and I have not yet would like to have written about. I have carried them back into the shop. It is late. A few people are in the street. I hear their patter past the door. The overhead fan light of which is open. The shop is lit only by the street lamps without. Good night, books, I repeat as I close the door of my room behind. My reviewing of children's books has made me, for all my heiresses, more childlike tonight. I would almost kneel down long and incongruous and pray by my bedside. What hinders me? A sense of humor, a sense of ridiculousness? No, Thomas Hood is right, for now 'tis little joy to know I'm further off from heaven than when I was a boy.